Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine a tiny island in the Black Sea. You've got a handful of defenders, and then this massive warship shows up demanding surrender. What would you do?
That's pretty much the scenario we're diving into today, the attack on Snake Island or Zmiinyi Island. It became this huge moment early in the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. Just an iconic symbol of resistance.
Yeah, it's a remarkable story. Today, we're tracing its path, really, from that initial defiance right through to the island being recaptured. Our sources are pretty varied, detailed briefing docs, timelines. We even looked at excerpts from a Japanese Wikipedia article on it. What's really interesting is how you can connect the military stuff, the geography, and, the powerful symbolism that emerged. It's a small place with a big story.
Absolutely. So this deep dive will cover that first attack, the surprising fate of the defenders, those critical counterattacks, eventually getting the island back, and what it all meant, both symbolically and practically. Okay, so let's start with the island itself. Why Zmiinyi? Why did it matter so much? It's incredibly small, just 0.17 square kilometers. Tiny. It sits off Ukraine's southwestern coast, maybe 45 kilometers from Romania, and crucially, it marks the southern edge of Ukraine's waters in the Black Sea. Ukraine even set up a settlement there, Bile, back in 2007, sort of planting their flag, literally.
So small, but the location sounds key. One of our sources calls it a key point, yushu in Japanese. Can you break down why controlling it is so vital for, maritime access and security there?
Well, yeah, key point is perfect. Its size is just totally disproportionate to its strategic weight. Control Snake Island, and you essentially control major shipping lanes. You can project naval power, set up air defenses. It gives you eyes and reach over a huge chunk of the northwestern Black Sea. Affects everything moving in or out of major Ukrainian ports.
Right. And for you, listening, this wasn't just some abstract military thing. Our sources show its occupation by Russia quickly turned it into a base for a naval blockade. That blockade choked off vital Ukrainian grain exports. And even before the invasion, President Zelensky knew it was important. He held a press conference on the island in August 2021 saying, point blank, Ukraine would defend it.
The commitment was clear.
So the stage was set. February 24, 2022, first day of the full-scale invasion. Around 6 p.m. local time, Russian warships, including their Black Sea flagship, the missile cruiser Moskva, and the Vasily Bekov patrol ship, they start shelling the island.
But just before the shelling, the Moskva radioed the Ukrainian soldiers there, demanded their surrender. And that's when we get that absolutely legendary reply from a Ukrainian defender in Russian. Which translates pretty bluntly to Russian warship, go fuck yourself.
Exactly. And what happened next? I mean, the impact of that. Ukrainian official Anton Himoshenko shared the audio clip. It just exploded online, went totally viral. Suddenly, it's this global slogan for Ukraine, for resistance. People were comparing it to things like, remember the Alamo, just incredible power in those few words. Audacious.
It really resonated. But then came some confusion about the defenders themselves. Initially, Ukraine's state border guard reported all 13 border guards were killed in the attack. Tragic story. But then Russia's Ministry of Defense, specifically Igor Konashenkov, came out with a different version. They said 82 Ukrainian soldiers had actually surrendered voluntarily. Claimed they were taken to Sevastopol and Crimea as POWs after signing pledges not to fight anymore.
So conflicting stories right away. What was the truth in the end?
Well, a bit later, Ukraine did officially confirm their defenders were alive, captured, and being held as POWs. So the initial reports of them being killed weren't accurate.
Okay, and there's a follow-up on them too, right? About a rescue vessel.
Yeah, the civilian search and rescue ship, the Sapphire. It was seized near the island just a couple of days later, February 26th.
Right. And it was eventually released, though, March 24th, in a prisoner exchange. That same exchange freed 19 civilian sailors and 10 other POWs. Ukraine's deputy PM, Iryna Vereshchuk, was apparently very involved in getting them released.
And the soldier who actually said the famous line?
Reportedly, yes. He was released in another prisoner exchange just a bit later, March 30th, and was subsequently given a Ukrainian medal for his defiance.
Wow. Okay, so the defenders survive, become POWs, some get exchanged, but the island is still occupied. Then comes a major turning point, doesn't it? Involving that same warship.
A huge turning point. April 13th, 2022. The Russian missile cruiser Moskva, the flagship, the one that demanded the surrender, it catches fire. There's an explosion. This happened off the coast of Odesa. Ukraine claimed they hit it with 2 anti-ship missiles, likely Neptune missiles.
And it sank. It sank the next day, April 14th, while they were apparently trying to tow it back to port. A massive blow to the Russian Navy.
That's stunning. The flagship involved in the start of this saga, taken out. Strategically, how big a deal was losing the Moskva? Our sources say Russia then scrambled to heavily fortify Snake Island itself.
It was enormous. The Moskva wasn't just another ship. It was a command center, a major air defense asset, a symbol of Russian power in the Black Sea. Losing it left a huge gap. And yes, Ukraine assessed that Russia reacted by pouring resources onto Snake Island, more air defense systems, radar, multiple rocket launchers, trying to make the island itself fill the void left by the Moskva, essentially, to maintain that control.
So they doubled down on the island, but Ukraine kept coming.
Relentlessly. From late April through June 2022, Ukrainian forces launched sustained counterattacks. They reported hitting a command post, Strela 10 surface-to-air missile systems, killing dozens of Russian soldiers on the island itself in late April.
Using drones a lot, I imagine.
Very effectively. Early May, they claimed destroying Russian equipment with the Air Force. Then Bayraktar TB2 drones reportedly took out 2 Raptor-class patrol boats and landing craft near the island. On May 7th, more drone action reports of a Iryna-class landing craft destroyed, and there was even footage released showing Ukrainian Su-27 jets doing these incredibly low, fast bombing runs on the island, filmed by a drone.
Wow, really hitting them from the air and sea.
Exactly. There was even footage of a drone striking a Russian helicopter on the island. And significantly, by mid-June, the UK Ministry of Defense noted Ukraine had started using Western-supplied Harpoon anti-ship missiles. They almost certainly hit a Russian vessel trying to resupply the island with weapons.
So, constant multi-pronged pressure. Did Russia acknowledge any of this?
Well, they did claim on June 21st that they'd repelled a big Ukrainian attempt to land troops, supported by missiles and drones. But the overall picture was one of increasing pressure on the Russian garrison.
And that pressure eventually worked. June 30th, 2022. What happened?
Both Ukraine and Russia announced that Russian forces were withdrawing from Snake Island.
Okay, but their reasons differed quite a bit, didn't they?
Massively. Russia framed it as a gesture of goodwill.
Yeah.
Said they were showing they weren't blocking Ukrainian grain exports, facilitating humanitarian corridors, that sort of thing.
A gesture of goodwill. After being pounded for weeks?
Precisely. Ukraine's commander-in-chief, Valery Zaluzhny, had a very different take. He stated flatly that the Russians left because they simply couldn't withstand the Ukrainian attacks anymore. The shelling, the bombing, the missile strikes.
Made it untenable.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And Zaluzhny added another point just a day later, July 1st. He accused Russia of dropping white phosphorus bombs on the island after they withdrew.
Which would directly contradict that whole goodwill narrative.
Completely.
So, regardless of the spin, the Russians were gone, Ukraine moved back in, yes. On July 7th, 2022, Ukrainian forces landed back on the island, raised the Ukrainian flag. A very symbolic moment.
Though Russia did claim it conducted airstrikes against that landing force. The back and forth continued, even after the withdrawal.
But the recapture had real-world consequences, right? Beyond the symbolism. You mentioned grain earlier.
Absolutely critical. On July 13th, just days after retaking the island, Ukraine's foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba, stated clearly that getting Snake Island back allowed them to start using crucial shipping routes for grain exports out of the Danube River estuary. Those roads had been choked off by the Russian naval blockade, which leaned heavily on controlling Snake Island. So taking it back directly helped ease the global food situation somewhat.
Amazing. A tiny island having that kind of global impact. And the story didn't quite end there, did it? There were more symbolic moments.
That's right. Fast forward almost a year, June 12th, 2023, another prisoner exchange. This one saw 96 Ukrainians returned, and importantly, it included soldiers who had been captured on Snake Island right at the beginning.
Bringing some of the original defenders home?
Exactly. And then on July 8th, 2023, President Zelensky actually visited the island himself, laid flowers at a memorial, thanked the troops. A powerful image.
And wasn't there a stamp? I remember seeing that everywhere.
Oh yeah, the postal stamp. Designed by Ukrainian artist Boris Gro. It shows a Ukrainian soldier on the beach giving the middle finger to the Russian warship offshore. It was chosen by popular vote in Ukraine, apparently. Became this instant, enduring symbol of the whole saga, of that initial defiance.
This captures the whole spirit of it.
If you connect all these dots, Snake Island really does become more than just like a rock in the sea. It's a microcosm of the whole conflict, isn't it? You see the unexpected defiance, the strategic calculation, the relentless back and forth with counterattacks, and finally reclaiming sovereignty. And it all had this tangible impact on global food supplies. It makes you think, how can such a small place carry so much weight?
It's quite the journey we've traced. You've seen how this tiny island, grabbed right at the start, became the stage for a global catchphrase, the sinking of a flagship, some pretty sophisticated drone warfare, and ultimately, a win that mattered for getting grain out. It's just a stark reminder, I think, of how fast things can change in a conflict and how these incredibly powerful symbols can pop up from the most unlikely situations. So, thinking about all this, what really stands out to you? Beyond the military strategy, the chess moves on the map. What does the story of Snake Island really tell us about maybe the spirit of defiance when the odds seem impossible? Perhaps it's about how even these seemingly small acts of resistance, like that radio message, can echo around the world and actually lead to concrete, far-reaching consequences, proving that, power doesn't always come down to fives.